The following program presents principles designed to promote good health. It should not take the place of personal professional care. Viewers should always consult their qualified health practitioner before considering alternative treatment.
We need to know how the laws of nature work, and especially the fundamental law of nature. We will see that in short. We want to know how the human being is put together, and we said last night, like this pen has a structure, the human being also has a structure. He's put together, the eye is not somewhere else, it's in the head, all things are in its part, and they all function a certain way. And we saw last night that they are all in everyone the same, with the diversity that the color and the size is different, but the structure and the function is similar. I mean, it's identical. That's why we study that what is identical, not that what is different. Yeah, because if you study that what diversity is, we won't never get to an end, because that never makes us sick. You know that you have blue eye doesn't make you more sick than if you have brown eyes, yeah, or a big eye or a small eye. So it's just how it functions, or when the structure is changed, that brings disease. Then we have absolute the same basic needs. We are not different in our basic needs. We might be different in our not basic needs. The one likes certain thing, the other another thing, but that's not a basic need. We all need oxygen, and if you don't have it, what will happen? Yeah, so it's not something that you can say, oh, I am living with 50% oxygen. Is that possible? No, it's not possible. So we all need those basic needs, and the same power that governs everyone's life governs also the life of the other one. Yes, we will see that as well. And that puts the whole structure, the human being, into function so that we work well. Those four things are for me something that I cannot change with my thinking. You see, whenever we are in a study, we are very, very tempted to put the way we think above reality. And we'll see why. And then everyone can have his own theory. Everyone can have something that he says, oh, this is working like this. But how do you know if you don't have something that you can orient yourself after? Then your mind becomes your orientation. And if your mind is your orientation, you're lost. You agree with me? So we need to have that measurement. I had it last night, that we have something that my mind can look to and say, this is not 17, but it's just 15 and 7. Yeah? Because I need something my mind needs to go after. If not, everything is philosophy, everything is relativity, and then we can never get to an end. Unfortunately, this is how we view medicine. We view the human being as impossible to be grasped. Do we? Would you agree so? Yes. And yes, at the periphery, even a cell is impossible to be grasped, how it is in functions. But what can be grasped from a cell, and what can be grasped from even the most complex structure, that is the human being, is its structure, the way things function in that place where you really are in responsibility to see if you're sick or not, if you have stress or not. So those things shouldn't be a problem. That we grasp those things that matters. I just compare this with driving a car. Do you need to know how the car works to drive it? No. Do you need to know how these things work? I mean, some babies know better than me, but so I don't need it. I just need a few buttons to push and to know how it works. So that's that structure. That's the same thing. We need to know how to put ourselves and how we put ourselves into action, how we do what we do, so that understanding ourselves, we do know why we have what we have. So those things that are essential in life are never complex, are never difficult to understand. They are just very simple. But you know how it is? The more simple sometimes things are, the more difficult to grasp. Because we are somehow put to put everything and take everything very complicated, yeah? While it's very simple. So we saw last night, and this is the repetition, that we are put as humans into a law, and because our life is conditioned by our needs, so all needs fulfilled, so being inside the law, here we would have no disease. We would have total health. But if the needs are not fulfilled, then we have dysfunctions. You know, you're not functioning anymore well, and if you go more further away from the law, from the middle of it, you die. And the end, and so then function ends. So, what are the needs of men? When I faced in my practice the cause of the diseases, of course, I asked myself, what do they miss? What is missing in their life? And so I found out that when they had certain things in my ENT field, that they didn't miss any chemicals. You know, when someone comes to you with dizziness, would you think he misses food? I mean, he's not drunk. You can be dizzy when you're drunk. Maybe, I don't know, I never was drunk. But however, we can make ourselves to have certain symptoms by what we eat and drink. But in my field, it's very interesting. There are very low things that you come to think, oh, this person might have not eaten well. Yeah? When you have this, as this lady was having it's an older lady, 77 years old, just recently came to my practice, and she was dizzy for 2 months. And she hardly could walk. And her right vestibular organ was affected. And I don't even know, maybe she had a tumor already, but I could see on what I did on consultation that it was the right side of her brain and the right side of her vestibular organ. And so, where does this come from? For 2 months, she hardly can walk. And of course, I have to ask my patient what is missing in their life. Do you think she misses food? Water? Exercise? What shall I give her? What shall I tell her? Look, somewhere you are outside the law, but where are you outside the law? That the law is there and you are here and you don't know what happens. And so I said, what happened in your life? And she said, well, from 2013, I am in a conflict with my oldest son. She has 3 children, and she said, all are well made, only the oldest son isn't so well, so that when in 2013, when her mother died, her mother inherited her a house. And her oldest son says, that house from your mom is my house. And so there started a fight between mother and son that went to the court and to lawyers, and mother had to do something about it. And she has a daughter that is a good lawyer, but she said, Mom, I don't take your case because I don't want to be with you and my brother. And so she said, both children left me alone to fight myself. And she told me that she won't live anymore. She was so down in these 4 years of fighting with her son. Now, why do you fight with your son? What do you need from your son? What is it? Anything physical? Is it only something spiritual? And she is a very nice case in which you can see righteousness can make you really sick. I mean, it kills you. I mean, not righteousness, but the missing of it. But did the son make her the dizziness? Can we take him and say, hey, look, get out of that fight with your mom so that your mom have no dizziness and that is not depressed and doesn't take her life? So her own thoughts that she has make her those body reactions. And how does that work? You see, it took me 2.5 years, like I said last night, to realize that what man needs spiritually is more important and makes him more physically sick, whatever he eats and whatever he drinks and whatever he lays in bed only and does not exercise. And I will prove it through the whole series that what we think is the most potent thing in our life. Because how does that work? That the thought that is pure spiritual, you cannot grasp it. Righteousness, can you give a definition of it? Except you say it's outside the law? But no, we cannot give any, because it's pure spiritual. We cannot say, oh, it's a chemistry and we put certain chemistry together and that gives righteousness. So these are purely spiritual things, and they are taking our life away because we need them. Anyone here does not need love? I see these young people here, they really smile because they need love. Yeah? Everything they desire in life is love. Anything else? Do you need more than love? Sometimes a little bit food, but that's not really that what matters. Love is that what pushes us, that what drives us on. And then seeing that, I never learned anything about love in my medical school. So I said, I have to go and see why and how does that work. Because would you be interested, if you're a doctor, and even not, to know how thoughts work on the body? And to say, how can that happen? How can that thought so destroy that vestibular organ that it puts it out of function? And you just go all the same like this. How does that work? And I think that is a good challenge, isn't it? To just know, this is the process, this is how it works. And for me, that was the way to go into it. I said, I have to study the law. There must be in nature a clear law that explains to me why thoughts damage the body or giving him the power. So that's why we do a little bit of theory tonight about the laws. There are in nature 2 kind of laws. There might be more, I don't know, but at least 2. And one is the fundamental law on which all other laws are built on. And all natural laws are absolute laws, but there is still a difference between a fundamental law and a secondary law. I just want to make this point so that we know on what we base, because we must base our mind on something outside of us, and that must be something that is unchangeable, that you with your mind, even though you would like to change it, you must consider that's impossible. Yeah? So natural laws are in 2 ways. The secondary laws are absolute laws, but they depend on circumstances to work. If you have different circumstances, they don't work. Very, very simple things that we must know when gases are in warm environment, they are different than when they are in a very cold environment. You know that, yes? So that's why you have to consider certain circumstances to know if that works or works not. So when you put some liquid gas in a bottle, you have a measurement to put that liquid gas, because gas is expanding. Now, if you put that measurement when the gas is minus 10 degrees into that, you still fill it to the same level, but what will happen? You fill up too much, because when it is minus 20 or minus 10, the gas is together, and this is not expanded, and when then it warms up, it expands and expands too much, and then it explodes. So those are absolute laws, but they depend on circumstances. If you have a good temperature, you just put it on the level, nothing happens. But what is the fundamental law? The fundamental law will never be dependent on circumstances. That is, it always works no matter what circumstance is. You can never take it off, you can never switch it off. It is there. Whatever you do, you never can change it. Now, what would be best for us to base on? On this law that is never changeable. That is not dependent on circumstances. You cannot say, oh, let's see if the temperature was right, if that law functions or not. No. The fundamental law will never change. And that is that law that I put my study on, because it shows me why the thoughts and what the thoughts do to the body. Because in the fundamental law, all laws are included, and they must have a connection to the fundamental law. So we know, and we learn it in school, that everything must have power. I hope this battery will last, because I forgot to charge it. Yeah? And if not, because you see, we are dependent on power. Are we dependent on power or not? Imagine your light will switch on off for a day. How would that be? No electricity. Would that be strange? Yes or no? Yeah, it would be strange, at least for those who need all the things. So everything needs power, and the power that comes from outside, and all energy is transformed and passed on. So this is, if you have done your physics and your school works, you know that's the thermodynamic law, whatever it calls there. I just put it in very simple words so that anyone can understand it. So everything needs energy. Every energy comes from outside, and energy can it be stored? How long? Every energy must be transformed and passed on. You can never keep energy. That's why the batteries is what doing? They give it on. They do not keep the power for themselves. They keep it for a while, but they must give it on. It's not possible that they should keep it. If you leave the battery alone at a certain place, it is empty, even though you didn't ever put it to some device, because it cannot retain the power. This law is having two things that I will consider. The first result is that every effect must have a cause. So disease is an effect, yes? It must have a cause. That's the fundamental of it. Anything you see, it must have a cause. And the function of the law is everything must take in order to give. Because if nothing has its own energy, it takes the energy. This battery must take the energy from where? From the power source, yes. It fills up, and what does it do then? Passes on. This law can never be changed. Anything from the smallest atom to our brain or whatever we have is working in the same way. You can never keep anything for yourself. Some people know that because they have to say anything they knew, they have to give. But in physical, in the law, you have to give it further. So let's look how that works in practical. So there is a cause, it's most invisible, and then there are effects. How many effects one cause can have? So one cause can have infinite effects. You remember the domino pieces, yes? And if you would have an infinite row, how many domino pieces would you need to push to put that row down? Only one. Because what happens? The first one takes the energy and it was, give it further, takes it, give, takes it, give, and it will never end if the row would go there. Because the power is always there. You know that laws in chemistry, everything, nothing is lost, everything is just transformed. Yeah? Do you learn that here? Yeah. So, that's why, how many diseases can come from one cause? How many dysfunctions can come from one cause? You see, I came here and it was not the best flight I had, because I was fine until I get on the airplane, and then usually I don't eat in the night, but I was tempted to break my principle, because I said this is a long flight and then every other flight, so maybe you take the food from the airplane and eat it. And I tasted it and it was vegan, it was ordered special, but that salad that was there, I just tasted and I said, this is not good. But I already took a few bites from it because, yeah, my appetite is very strong. Do you have a strong appetite? Unfortunately, that's not so easy to get into control sometimes. And so after 5-6 hours, I got my first problems. And I said, this is impossible. And I got my bowel movements going on, and pain, and I got headache. Yeah? And I usually haven't had headache, and so I had to come all this way with this result that happened. And so it was one bite maybe, and then how many effects came after? Yeah, so it's not only your bowel who is affected, it's not only your liver that's affected, it's not only your stomach that's affected, it's the whole system that is affected, because you have a dependency on one chain of goes everywhere. And so my head was affected, the way I was thinking even was affected, because I couldn't sleep. I had a row for 3 seats, I could lay down, but I couldn't sleep. You know, when you don't feel well, try it. Some people can, but I cannot. But just make the thing plain. There is one cause, and it can have many effects. So it's a primary effect, a secondary effect, and a tertiary and a 1,000-fold effect. So what would we need to control to just have good effects? Everything, yes? Now we will see that we cannot really control what we eat all the time. Can we? No. But there must be something that we can control. So let's see, what is stress? A cause or an effect? So stress is a effect. And this is the rule of cause and effect. Whenever you have some step before the other one, then that's not the cause. Now you can say stress causes dizziness and it causes to fall down. There is a chain of reaction, and we usually take, I don't know if stress even is primary effect, we will see it might even be a fourth effect. when we just see all the things that come before you have stress. Yeah? But let's put it here as a primary effect. What would you combat if you want to combat stress? You would combat the cause, yes? Because if you go against stress, just say, okay, do some deep breathing and whatever as a therapy, you might cool down for a moment, but you never take away the cause. So what is fear? A cause or an effect? It's an effect, because there is something before you get afraid. There's a thought or a few thoughts before you get afraid. So that's why it's so important to know, okay, fear comes from a cause. And if I want to combat fear, it's not enough that I could say, okay, go against it. Now I know it from my own experience that I didn't really listen to the thoughts of fear, except at the beginning, when I ended up at the emergency rooms and thought I'd die, and so on. Yeah? But after a while, you don't go to the doctors because you know they cannot save your life, so then you better die than go. And then the fear might disappear with the time. But fear is a effect, and it can change your behavior, and it makes people to really lose their work. They don't go to work, they don't go to school anymore. Yeah? So we have to do something about the cause, not the effect. So if you do just a therapy against fear, it won't help if you don't know the cause of fear. And then, of course, what are conflicts? Cause or effect? Well, every conflict is a effect, but it's good that we think conflict is a cause for most diseases, yes, if we take the conflict as a primary effect. And it has a lot of reactions. A conflict, I tell you, brings depression, brings suicide, brings all kinds of problems. Conflicts between humans are the worst thing that can happen to you. And especially if you're a mother and you raised a son, and the son comes when you are old and says, "My mom, that house is mine." Would you like that son? So poor mom, is it? But is the son the problem? So what would you remove? How would you treat the lady? Would you say, bring your son to me, I take care for him, and you will get healed? Can we deal like that with the things? We won't be able to deal like that. So that's why we must know the cause that is behind the things. And that is my desire that we all should understand, because there is one cause where all our thoughts arise. Every thought must have a beginning. And they must come from the same source in every human being. And then we understand that, then we know what we need to change in order to get away from stress, from fear, from whatever, and from conflicts. Yeah? We want to be conflict-free. I at least want it. It's now over 12 years that I said to myself, I will never get again into a strife with anyone. I will never argue with anyone. Is that a good thing? Did you ever try that? Well, some people don't even try it, but I was convinced that conflicts destroy my happiness. They take away my power, because now I'm not fighting anymore like I fought it before, but I'm still, unfortunately, not there to really do not enter into conflict or get angry. But I'm learning. My body helps me to learn. My herpes shows to me, but they come not anymore like before I fight it, very big fights, but now a little thing, just boom. Yeah, and we have to overcome the little things because they are the most dangerous, because when you know to control little things, you control the big ones, no problem. But if you control just the big ones and not the little ones, lately the little ones will bring you to death or to whatever problem. Whenever you have a fight, can you remember how strong you felt after or how weak you felt after? Now, being used not to fight anymore, I mean, I try to, at least, in certain areas I have no problem anymore. But there are certain things that still pit me, and they just go very fast. And then you get into that, and if after that I feel myself very tired, because that conflict takes away the power of life. Yeah? It takes away that what makes us to run well. And so I want to exterminate the cause of conflicts so that I am totally free. And we will see how that works so that everyone can do it. Now, to understand things, can cause and effect be the same? You see, in life, there's sometimes not many things we need to separate. And there is one thing that we really need to separate. We need to separate cause and effect because they can never be the same. Now, we have this custom that we take the primary effect as a cause for the secondary effect and the secondary effect as a cause for the tertiary effect. But I hope that we try to think more to the point, yes, that we want to go to the cause that is the real cause and not count an effect as a cause for the other effect. Yeah? So that's why in the law, in reality, cause and effect are always different. That's why we need to keep them apart. Tell me, if you fight against effects, is that a good fight or a fight that is not really going to a good end? So effects, you can fight against effects. You can take a pill when you are having headaches, or you can do something about effects, but then you just change the way the effect shows up. But you must understand what is that cause. So I am not against therapy. Therapy deals with effects. Yeah? But I am for dealing with the cause. And that is the only way to, at the end, get to a good result. Yeah? So that's why when we have a disease in the body, what is a disease in the body? A cause or an effect? It's an effect. Now, according to the law, where the effect is, the cause can never be. That's why for every disease you have in your body, the cause must be outside the body. Because the law will never permit that when this thing is damaged, that it damaged itself. We will see that when you go a little bit further, that in nature, nothing that is physical can damage itself. Because the law does not permit. It must be a cause as well for keeping things going and of stopping things going. That's why when I discovered the law, I said, okay, when a person is sick, the problem must be outside of the body. Because we have body diseases, and we must know what makes the body sick. But I would never search in the body the cause for disease, because that would be a no-way search. It would just be like the mechanic when you have a bump in your metal in the car. You take out the bump, and you put it under the microscope and say, let's see, why did it have twisted, Would that make sense? No. In medicine it makes. And so we look to causes in the body, but in the body you can only find effects. This simple law would just help us to go and find the cause of disease. It must be outside the body. So that's why we have 4 eras that are making the body sick, but we will see if they're a cause or an effect. So inheritance. I said last night was this question, how does inheritance work? Now there are many things we might not grasp in inheritance, but we all know for sure that all that we are is inherited. Yes? What we do is not inherited, but what we are is inherited. Are you with me? You didn't choose your nose. You didn't choose your hair color. Now you can, But everything you have, the way how tall you are, I always was a very small man, and I didn't like to be small. So when I was 16, 17, I was always small. And I said, I have to take some vitamins. I must do something to grow up. And yes, we were living then in Germany, in Romania. And some people from Germany brought me some multivitamins. Those days they were, And so I took them. And suddenly I grew a little bit, so not too small now anymore. But all the time, I was very small. In my school, the last one, at the row, the last one. I had one that he was a little bit taller than me, and sometimes we switched the places, but I never get more than the pre-last place in the tallest thing. So that's inheritance. We can do nothing about that. Yes? So inheritance is never our action. And of course, we can inherit diseases. We can inherit dysfunctions from the beginning. But inheritance is an effect or a cause. Now you see, sometimes you get confused between only 2 things. So evidently, you're an effect, not a cause. Do you agree with me? You're an effect, not a cause, because something comes before you. Yeah? So take the rule. Something comes before you, you're an effect. Yeah? So we are all effects. So if we are born or inherited some sicknesses, where was the cause? Before us. Yes, before us. Somewhere it can be going, I don't know where it can go, but we can have inherited things that other caused. Yes? And we can do nothing about inheritance. Now sometimes we make the mistake to think that genetics and inheritance is the same. Yes? So we think an inherited disease is a genetic disease. And we think a non-inherited disease is not a genetic disease. Now what is the truth? How many diseases are not genetic? None of them. You must have a program for every disease. Because it's a reaction that comes from the body on something that comes from outside of it, yes? And there must be a program that puts that into action. So if you have a flu, it's genetic. Yes. You see, I have herpes. My wife never got them. I can kiss them no matter. She never takes them on. Why? She just misses the program. And if you don't have the program, nothing can happen to you. So it's just a program that needs to be turned on and off, and genes are causes or effects? They are effects, and they must be turned on and off. And now it depends who turns them on and off that they work. Because the program that makes the disease must be turned on. And that's the question. Who turns on the flu disease? Is it the flu or something that comes before the flu? Yeah. So, however, we won't go too far because we don't have the time. Inheritance, we must consider it. When a person comes to me, I must consider if that disease is inherited or not. If it's inherited, how much can I do about it? As looking to the cause. Can I do something? No, the cause is outside, it's gone, I can nothing there. I just have to do and deal with the effects as much as I can deal with the effects. Now, we can have accidents. What are accidents? Causes or effects? Is there something coming before the accident? Yes. So, accidents are things that can be occurring without our action, or they can be our action. We cannot pay attention, and then we get an accident, and then we can hurt our body, and we can make him to bleed or whatever, break the bones. So those are accidents, are effects that can damage the body, but they are there according to the body. We could say, yes, it's a cause on the body itself, but they in itself are actions that come from outside, and they are effects. So, chemistry, we need to eat. Do we need to eat and drink? Yes. Is it our responsibility what we eat and drink? Yes. Can we control it to the end? Now I tell you, I'm traveling very much. I'm home in the year less than a half a year on days. And I go in homes. I'm very rarely put in hotels when they invite me, because I like to stay at family's home. Wherever they put me, I take it like coming from God, and I say, that's fine. And so I'm dependent that someone should feed me. Now my wife gives me with me all the time, so make sure that I don't starve. But even if I take that from home, when I come somewhere and I stay for 3-4 days, it doesn't last. Yeah? So I have to eat with the people. Do I know what they cook, what they put in? Do I know it? Where they buy it, it's organic or not organic or whatever it is? No, if I could prefer, I would take my own food from my own garden. But then I can stop being the doctor. I can stop traveling. So I cannot take care for what I eat in the last thing. I just can take care when I look to the food on the table, what I pick or what I don't pick. I stopped eating that salad, but obviously it was too late. Yeah, it was maybe enough poison, and I must say, very sensitive. My wife is not so she didn't get anything. Or maybe less symptoms. Yeah, so it's dependent on how we are. So there are things in life that we can never control to the fullest. Do you agree with me? You can never control your environment to the fullest. You can never control to the fullest what you eat. You can never control what you inhale. Can you? You don't know. You don't smell it. You cannot control chemistry, you cannot control the accidents, and you certainly hadn't controlled how you were made. But there is something that is there as a cause, and that is thoughts. Now tell me, thoughts. Thoughts that come onto the body. Whose actions are thoughts? Can it be someone else? No, so you see, thoughts are only actions. And if thoughts matter most for our diseases, then that should be something we all should control. Should it? Because nothing else, we have access to control except our thoughts. And most people believe that they cannot control them. You agree? And yes, in a certain state of mind that we have that incapacity to control our thoughts. Because stress is the loss of control. Anxiety, fear, is just a loss of control. And conflict, I don't even say it, you know it, it's a loss of controlling what? Your thoughts. Only your thoughts you are able to control. But now you see, there might be a very great temptation to control what? Chemistry, accidents. Yes? Do we want to control those things? Can we? No, we cannot. That's why if we lose less time trying to control things that we cannot control and put more effort in things that we have to control, we would be fine off, would we? So I think to deal with your own thoughts is the most important thing. Because that's only your, your range of activity. All others is not in your power to do. That's why I came to understand it so nice. So stress, anxiety and fear or conflicts is a thought issue. So where must be the problem then? In you or outside of you? We spoke from the body diseases that they must come from outside. And yes, the information that we think about is also coming from outside. But thoughts is a process that you do. You handle information, and we will see how you handle the information. But we will see if thoughts can have an effect on the body, they must come from inside the body or from outside the body. By the law, they can only come from outside. Nothing from inside the body can kill the body. Nothing from inside of anything can destroy itself. So that simple law would just so clear our minds up. I must admit, it cleared mine for years now that I dwell on it. It just puts all things right. And you get a good balance. So thoughts must be controlled because they are just ours. No one can think for you. No one can do that action except you. Let's go to the place where we go to search for the existence of thoughts. Where do you would search for the existence of thoughts? In your stomach, in your gut, where would you search for? You would search it at least in the head. Yeah? Because we know all that there must be, the thought process must start in your head. Yeah? And there we have the brain. We have two brains, like I said last night, the right one and the left one, the cortex. The cortex is a layer that in it, everything in your body is laid together. The right side of your cortex has the left side of your body, or part of it, and the other one is the other side. But everything, every dysfunction that you have in your body that comes from your thoughts must start in your brain. You agree? So people come to me and say, my nose is clogged for years. I don't get enough air. Now what is the nose? A cause or an effect? An effect. So I need to go now on the cause. So I need to go where? To see where the nose is conducted from. Where is the nose governed from? Because the nose, can it govern itself? No. We can influence it with sprays, but yes, because we can from outside go into the body with chemistry, but not that governs your nose, because when that chemical is taken off, your nose is the same. Because the input comes from where for your clogged nose or not? It comes from your cortex. That's why we have to understand a little bit the structure. So there was a man, he had for years a nose that is not getting enough air, and he went to the doctor, and of course the doctor, they like to do surgery, so they straightened up the nose. You can everything make holes bigger, and you think then you solve a problem, do you? And of course he solved that problem, but after the surgery he got dizziness. And now for 2 years he was dizzy. And he came to me and said, "Now, doctor, what shall I do?" Well, I said, if they would have done the surgery a little bit higher, the problem would be solved. You see, we do the surgery on the place where it's just a defect. But we must go on the cortex to see where the thing starts. Now, I am not against to do surgeries. I mean, sometimes you have to do surgery. I even do it myself to make the hole there, and the polyps are there, so at least to get some air. Or when your knee is gone forever, to replace it. But still, where does the process of your arthrosis or your knee start? Where does it start? It must start in your cortex, because it's a process that is a metabolic process that is governed just by what you think. Now, of course, there are two things that we are dependent on chemistry, we will see, and on electricity, because by what does the brain work? It works with electricity and with chemistry. That's the two-way things work. But everything starts with electricity. The input that the brain gets with the electricity that is made to him goes down and makes in the center of the brain the chemistry. And the chemistry then goes like a feedback where you then feel what you have thought, what kind of electricity went down. Now, this is a very simple structure of the brain, and won't go even further. This is enough for us to understand, because we know electricity is the starting point for everything that happens in our body. And if there is no electricity, what do we? How are we? We are dead. Okay? So everything starts with the electrical input that goes into our brain, and everything else is just effects. So what we first know to control or must control is how this electrical current is made. That's the question. Where do thoughts and mental abilities come from? Do they come from the brain or not from the brain? Can the brain think or can you not think? Are your feet, are they able to walk or not? So your feet are never able to walk, but you use them to walk. Is this thing able to think? Of course not. But it has processes there that looks like thinking, but it's never a thought. No thought process is in this thing inside. Exactly. So thought must be before that. So where do thoughts and mental abilities come from? Because if they do an input to the body, we must know their origin. We must know how they work. If we don't know that, we cannot even fight to bring them aright. Now, I went like all doctors do, all scientists do, I think. You exclude that what is possible to be seen to come to that what is impossible to be seen as an origin. Yes? And so I took chemistry. Are we all made from chemistry? Yes. And I say, what are the abilities of chemistry? according to the law. And these are chemical reactions. And we will see how much chemical reactions can do and what they cannot do. So then we can exclude what's coming from chemistry and what is never able to come from chemistry. So chemical reactions can only occur depending on outside factors. We know that, you have studied that. Can only proceed as intended, designed, because the necessary prerequisites for reactions are always predetermined. You never can combine two atoms that cannot be combined. That's what I wanted to say in that complex thing. And chemistry can absorb, store, and share energy and information. This is how much chemistry? How much chemistry is this? How much chemistry? 100%. Okay? 100% chemistry. You won't find anything else than chemistry in this tablet. You agree? I hope. I mean, that's the law. I cannot change it as well. Even if we would not agree that there is more than chemistry, there is nothing more than chemistry in a tablet. So, but let's see what chemistry cannot do, but we have abilities to do as humans and as animals. So what can chemical elements never do? They cannot feel anything. Do you have feelings? So what in you feels the feelings? Second, you can choose, but chemistry can not choose. Try it. See if chemistry will ever choose or have an ability to choose anything. And then cannot make any decisions. And I will spend a little bit of time here. They cannot destroy themselves. Can a human and an animal destroy himself? Yes or no? Yes. How do we have that ability to jump from a bridge or just take drugs or all other things that destroy us? How does animals have the ability to do it as well? Where does the ability for self-destruction come? Because we have no one chemical element or anything that is chemistry on Earth that will prove that it will destroy itself. You leave this pen here, it will stay here, except something comes around and will eat it up or destroy it. So chemicals have never any intention or any ability to do themselves harm. Yes? Just an example, take wood. Would you ever be afraid that wood will destroy itself? Can wood destroy itself? Or like take the apple. You know the apples when they get rotten, or how they come? Yeah? Does the apple rot himself, or is he rotten? What happens? Does the apple rot himself? No, why not? He has no ability to that. And so how do we preserve him then? You can transport them from New Zealand to Germany because we have New Zealand apples in Germany. How do you do that? How do you preserve it? You put something around the apple, if that chemical, whatever it is, so that the little bacteria cannot, what? Rot him. Everything that is rotten never does it to himself. It is rotten by something else. Because in chemistry, you have no ability that anything should destroy itself. So self-destruction, that a man and an animal can do harm to himself, is an evidence that they must be more than chemistry. Cannot have consciousness. Now we need our brain to have consciousness. We know that, do we? Like we need our feet to walk. We need our brain to think. But does the brain think? That was my point with the walking feet. So the brain can never think. And the idea of consciousness is one that struggles many scientists because they say, how does it come that you are conscious? Where is consciousness seated? Where do we get aware of ourselves? We need the brain for it, certainly, because we will see the combination, but the brain isn't it. So the physical have no cognitive abilities, they cannot have morals. And some of us have morals, do we? So where do these abilities come from? So that's the first thing. When you are starting to do medicine, you must have a structure of the human being. You must know where things come from. And if thoughts really are that important, it must be known where they proceed from. And you know they cannot proceed from the brain because the brain cannot produce thoughts, even though that's the normal belief of science. But faith is one and evidence is someone else. And I will give you 4 evidences that there must be a spirit on the brain. Not in the cells like some think, but on the brain, on the cortex. There must be something that governs the brain that is able to think. And I have 4 evidences that are reasonable, that are based on the basic law, and that you can all think and see that they make sense. The first argument that we must have a spirit is the spiritual needs. Do we need liberty and freedom? Do animals need it as well? I can tell you stories about our animals. They love our cats. They love liberty. They need safety and security. They have a need for curiosity and knowledge. Yes or no? Animals and humans have it. Have you ever seen that this pen will have any, or I don't know, maybe this plant will walk around and say, let's see what's around here. Yeah? Do they do that? No, but an animal does it. Understanding, orientation, loyalty, confirmation, joy. And I stop here, harmony with the animal needs, and I go to just the human needs, righteousness and justice, truth, responsibility, morality, wisdom, recognition, appreciation, happiness, peace, and so on. So these are needs that we all have. Do you agree? So where do they come from? Can you ever have a need that nobody asks for? That is, can you ever have hunger for food and thirst for water without the existence of a body? I hope not, that if you have no car, you don't need any gas. Do you? Will ever something blink home and say, fill me up? Will no blinking be. So there must be someone who says, I need it. And I was searching in our brain, I was searching in our whole body, and I didn't find one cell that says, I live with righteousness, and if I don't get righteousness, I stop functioning. Search it in any body, and you will never find it. There is no spiritual need in a cell. There is no ability that a cell knows what is righteousness and not. And do we care for it? Yes or no? Do we need it? We just fight for it for life and death. So there must be someone that says, I need this for my existence, because we will see these are existing needs. And there can be no necessity without examination through the solicitant to see if the need is met or satisfied. You see, everything you put in your body checks if it fits the body or not. And since that poison didn't fit my body, I got my problem. But now you can sense the truth and not the truth. You can sense and make the difference between harmony and no harmony. Who does that in you? Who can understand that, to do it? So the spirit, that entity, that spiritual entity, must have a capacity to make discernment between the different needs that it has, like the body, but the body doesn't, he just reacts to it, but still it is a thing. Then there is the second point. If there is in a system a contradiction, then you must have 2 elements, because in a single element there is no contradiction. That's why I have this picture here. This is a lady that gives water to this plant. And my simple question is, it's a tricky question, but it's a good question. It makes the point. Is why does she give water to that flower? It is very simple. The answer is because the plant cannot walk to the water. The plant cannot walk to the water. If the plant could walk to the water, you would not water the plant. It's nice that you got the idea, because it's a very important idea. In the plant world, there is no ability to supply themselves with their basic needs. The basic need in the plant world need to be put and brought near to them so they can take them over. A plant can never walk to a place to feed itself or even to accumulate or to make a provision for its own needs. It must be put in its area. So now we have a body that is like a plant. Can the body just go to feed itself? Now, you see, it's good to think. In humans and animals, the spirit must decide and carry out the feeding. That is, let's see the contradiction. When your body carves for food, and he sends up to the cortex, and there the spirit picks up the feeling that you're hungry. Who decides if you eat or not? Let's make it clear. Hunger would never be a need if the body would satisfy himself, and could. And you could never starve to death. Could you? If your body would be able to go and get his food, he would get the right food, he would just take that which is correct, what suits him best. But your body, unfortunately, or fortunately, is not able to discern to eat and not to eat. So people can kill themselves by not eating anymore. Yes? Why? Why do we have the ability to just say, I don't eat anymore? And most old people die because they don't want to eat anymore. And so they stop eating because they want to die. So we have two entities, the spirit and the body. And I ask you, what is more important, the purpose or life? If you have a conflict between liberty and life, what is your choice? If you have a conflict between righteousness and life, what is your choice? Now you see, since we never proven what we have been taught in school, we say life. But some of you might be Christians, and there is an interesting story in the Bible of Lucifer, who went in front of God and said, everything a man has, he will give for his life. You know the story in Job? And how was the result of the experiment? Did Job give everything for his life or not? Never. I came to experience this in my practice, that your life is never the reason for your conflict, for your stress. It's always your purpose. Every problem that a human has is not because he wants to live. His desire to live is there, but it's never the highest aim. Because you're never happy with life only itself. Yes? I asked my patient, I said, do you like to live just to live, or do you want more than living? And what's their answer? More. What's more? If life doesn't have a purpose, then people, what do? They die, they kill themselves. You see, I was 19 and I had to, my liberty desire was greater than the risk to be caught and made into prison that we evaded the communist world and came into Germany, the free land. Because freedom, liberty, is more precious than anything you have. Do you agree? I just recently had a young girl, she's 13, she's growing up in a family, she's a single child, and she wanted to talk to me. The parents know me, and usually when they are 13, I don't talk to them because I think they're too small to understand. But I do talk to them when they want to. And so she says, I live at home like in a prison. She has a lot of anxiety. She has a lot of uncontrolled behavior. She says, I go to school, I'm so angry on my mates. Because at home, she's kept like in a cage. The father controls the phone. Actually, he bought her a phone when she was 11 or 12, but then she didn't use the phone properly, so he took it away. And so then there is a conflict going on. For what? For life or for liberty? And I asked this girl, I said, if you would be 18 today, what would you do? If she could care for herself with 13, what would she do? She will leave home. And she would not matter it because at home she got food. You get food at home? Oh, some people stay home just because of the food. But they stay there because still they have some purpose in life that is not in danger at home. If not, they would not stay. I found that humans' problems are never in surviving. If survival would be the purpose of life, then we would never go into war, we would never fight, we would never have any weapons because we want to survive. You know, the clock was set 2 minutes before 12, this doomsday clock. It never was set like that. For what? How many weapons do we have to destroy this earth? Probably a few times. We can just, if they all would explode at the same time, the earth and all life would be exterminated a few times. If you are surviving, would you do that? If survival would be the reason for your life, you would never do it. But why would do the people do it? What do they want to secure to themselves? Purpose. They think, if someone is stronger than me, I have to be as strong as well. That's a fight for spiritual things or for physical ones? Spiritual. Do you think disease, stress, fear, and conflicts are for survival or for purpose? I tell you, it's always for purpose. In the conflict for life, you will always renounce life and choose the purpose, because you cannot otherwise. Even in animal, it's the same. Even in animal, because they have their spiritual need first as well as humans. The purpose always wins in the conflict. You will never have fear for surviving. You miss security. Your survival might be in the front because you can say, I want to live. No, it's not life that you really want to preserve. It's that you want to preserve something that gives your life meaning. I didn't find one person in my practice, and I saw thousands of them, that were sick because they wanted to survive. Then you just go home and stay home. You survive. It's you have a purpose. You have a conflict because of love issues. The third evidence is that there must be a communication between body and spirit, and how do the spirit and body and animals and humans communicate together. So we have the two things. One thing, the body communicates to feeling, we have seen with hunger, to the spirit. And the spirit feels the hunger, and now he has the ability to decide to eat or not to eat. Is the hunger compelling the spirit to eat, or can the spirit just say no? Can anything that comes from the body make the spirit to do its will? That is, can you torture a person, and can you force the spirit to do what you want him to do? Now, this is a thing that we must discern between the spiritual and the physical. A physical thing you always can force to do certain things. Because physical things, they follow. I can let this jump down, they must follow, the physical ones. But a spirit can never be forced to obey. And that's a very big thing to understand. It's so important when people are tortured or put to certain things, they can so be in that way that they do not obey what someone tells them to do or not to do. And I tell this story because it's a nice story. Last year I was in Canada, and there were some young people and children at my meetings. And I like when children are there as well, because they are paying more attention, even though sometimes they look like they play. But those things that are important, they cut up. And the mother came to me, and she said, I had my 7 or 9-year-old son. I don't know exactly how old he was. But the son came after my lecture about the Spirit. The next day, the mother put the son to make his piano lessons. And then the son says to mother, he says, Mother, have you been to the lesson last night? Have you paid attention? You know you cannot force my spirit to play the piano. Now you got the point. That young boy knows exactly what his need is. You can never force the spirit. Now why he makes still his piano lessons if you cannot force him? Because the spirit has needs. You see, children come to my practice, and mothers want them to cooperate with the doctor, but children do they have a spirit? Do they have their own will? Yes? Strong or not strong? Very strong. They know exactly. And then mother stays there and says, please open your mouth, little child. Just the doctor can sit in. And the child makes it even worse. And now we cannot force it. It's 5 years old. You cannot do any measurement. You can put it in narcosis, in anesthesia, and then, of course, you can open the mouth. But that's not what we want to. So, then, how does mother proceed? The spirit can be bought. To do things that fits his needs. Yes? So the child knows that exactly. And so the mother says to the child, you get your favorite ice cream. And the child, very smart, I won't forget that, never says immediately. And what must mother say? Yes, sir, immediately. And she says immediately, and then what happened next minute? The mouth is open. Because the spirit now is satisfied with his gain, like we will see it, how the spirit works. So, since the spirit has needs, he must do something to satisfy his need. And so you can buy him. But you can never force him to obey if he doesn't want to. So in the spiritual world, there is no force for obedience. That's why you can never force a child, you can never force an animal to do your will. You know that? They will only do your will if you give them something that fits their needs. But this plant here will always do that what you do with it, because it has no choice and no spirit. So I hope that is a very, very basic thing to understand. No one can ever force you to do what he wants, except you are dependent on him and you think he fulfills some of your needs. But then you act and not someone else. Because opening the mouth is a thought process that is clearly a decision of the spirit of the child and of everyone. Because the mouth can never open itself by itself, because it's body. Now thoughts come to the body as commands. The body always must listen. The body has no choice. It reacts always to commands and our external factors. And I come now to my last evidence, and then we finish. The legal evidence, the need of supply of energy. The fundamental law says that everything needs energy, and energy must come from outside. So what's the difference between a living person or a dead person? What is in the brain? We know that the brain, the cortex, works with electrical current. And the question is, what makes the electrical current in the brain? How does the electrical current come to the brain? And how it disappears? Yes? But how does it come there? And we know that the brain cannot make its own electricity. That's why the brain is just an instrument that by giving the brain electricity, the brain follows the commands of the spirit. So who makes the electricity? Only your own spirit, and your decision makes it. And we can prove that when we measure the electricity. Whenever you make a decision, boom, a new impulse comes and goes into your brain. So thoughts produce something that only they can do, that gives an input that puts that brain into work. Because if not, the brain would be a perpetuum mobile. And the brain would be something that can think and discern and have morals and all this, while the brain has no ability to that. That we can prove when a person is dead, because it cannot think. So it's so important to understand that there is a spirit. I just have the summary. If there is no spirit, there is no spiritual mind activity, consciousness. If we have no spirit, there are no spiritual needs. That's very basic. You would never have need for righteousness if you would not have a spirit. There are no sensory perceptions, feeling, sight, smell, taste, hearing. In a plant, you have none of this. Feeling, sight, smell, taste, hearing, it's all in the spirit. There are no thoughts, no thinking. There is no judgment. There is no responsibility. And there is no morality or ethics. There is no spirituality. And we could not move ourselves. The ability to move ourselves is just given by our spirit, because he makes all the actions and governs the brain. Actually, he's the only one who makes the whole brain to put him together. So this lecture is important for us to understand. While I never saw a spirit, and I never saw electricity, but I can see the light. Can you see it? And you cannot see the wind, but you still see the result of the wind. Can you feel it? Yes. So what we cannot see does not think is not existent there. But I came to understand that the human spirit is that what is so important to understand, because he governs the thoughts, and if he would put the thoughts correctly storage in the body would not be damaged. Because you see, electricity is fixed for the body like your food is fixed for the body. And if you give to your brain the wrong electricity by the wrong thought, you damage your whole system. And everything that is going, how much of your body is connected to the brain? Everything. So one impulse affects your whole body. Let's take the panic attack. How much of your body is involved in a panic attack? Like that. And it's even a subconscious thought. You are not even aware of it. So I hope you go home tonight and you can think about this. Because if you want to deal with humanity, we must deal with his spiritual part. Because that comes from outside the body and damages the body. And we must know how that works together. And we will see tomorrow night the anthropology, how mind, body, and soul is, so that we have a clear structure, a structure, yes, we don't go into details, but if you have the real clear structure, then you can lose yourself in details, you won't get lost. But if you don't have a structure, you go into details and you will get lost. For me to discover the Spirit was a great thing, because now by the law, I can know who damages the body, who runs it, who makes it to dysfunction when it is not something that you have eaten or hurt you or whatever. Because we will see that there are two things that the body needs, electricity and chemistry. And you can, of course, damage him with both, because the body is set for both parts without a choice.